I'm going to show you a fascinating encounter from round 5 of Norway chess between Fabiano Caruana and Sergei Karjakin. They often produce really interesting battles. Just think back to the Candidates tournament in March, where Karjakin defeated Caruana right at the end of the tournament and almost upset the apple cart. If you haven't seen that game, then do look in the video description. You'll see a link to that. And of course, 2 years ago, in the final round of the Candidates, where Karjakin also beat Caruana. So going into the game in round 5, Karjakin was on a high. He won this really nice game in round 4, and Caruana not having a great start to the tournament, having lost that game against Carlsen. Oh, by the way, I should mention before we look at the game that Ding Liren has had this bike accident and he's had to withdraw from the tournament. He had some surgery and will be recovering from that. So his first three games, 3 draws, won't count. They're scrubbed from the tournament. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into this game. So Caruana has played the English. And this is a common variation. Now, he doesn't go g3 here, but goes e3. This was very popular, this line with bishop b4, in the late 1970s and early 80s. And dips in and out of fashion. I suppose the advantage of playing like this for both sides is that it's not still theoretically not so well worked out. So there's room for some freedom of thought, let's put it like that. So this is the normal move here, bishop takes knight, because if black castles here, then knight d5 is a bit annoying. It's possible for black to play like that, but bishop takes c3 is the best move. And here, well, you might remember in Shamkir, Carlsen played b-pawn takes bishop against Topalov, and well, actually, he won this game. It's probably around about equal, but that's another way for white to play. But queen takes is the normal move. E-pawn threatened, so that's defended by the queen. I've played this with white on quite a few occasions, and I always played a3 in this position. Well, there are interesting subtleties here. I don't have time to go into it, but Caruana played b3, so wanting to get the bishop to the long diagonal. So this is his extra bishop, and he wants to use it, which is very logical. And here, definitely the critical move is d5. You can see that white's development isn't so good on the king side. Still got to get his king to safety, and it is a very logical move to open the position with d5. It's certainly the most critical. And then white would play d4. And, well, it's a very tense position, actually, but I'm convinced this is the correct way for black to play. And I think Karjakin knew that, but was perhaps afraid to step into some preparation. So he castled, which also leaves the position very tense, actually. But in a sense, white gets what he wants, which is to be able to bring this bishop to the long diagonal. So bishop b2 played. And here one can play e4, but rook e8 from Karjakin, just holding things for the moment. a3. So perhaps you want to expand with b4, but certainly you want to cover the b4 square. And now here, once again, critical move is d5. And we have a kind of reverse Sicilian. Then the queen, well, it can drop here. It can go to c4 straight away. It's a very sharp position indeed, you know, as are most open Sicilians, particularly when the king is still in the middle. You can also play e4 and then either knight d4 or knight g5 possible. But instead, Karjakin played a5. And now the obvious move is bishop e2, but, well, again, e4 and d5 are possible moves. But instead of this, Caruana played h3. It's a very unusual move, a very provocative move, really. Waiting for black to commit himself with either e4 or d5. And one of the reasons was that Caruana said he wanted to either put the bishop on c4 or b5. I mean, there's some interesting lines here. So, for example, after d5 takes, and he said that he was looking at this, for example. So black pushes forward, and that creates space for the queen to come over. But he was interested in bishop c4 and giving this up and just putting the king on the queen side, and those bishops are just superb. There are other points to h3 as well. In those variations of d5, it also stops the bishop coming to g4, which can be a very threatening move. In any case, Karjakin kind of didn't want to sort of open the position, didn't want to take on a risk actually, and played b6. He played this wonderful attacking game against Vachier Le Grave yesterday, but sometimes he does seem a little bit risk averse actually, and with b6 he's certainly not playing the critical move here, which is d5, instead wanting to bring his pieces out nicely first. So bishop e2 from Caruana here. He did for a moment consider g4, but not seriously. It's not his kind of move. Bishop e2. So Karjakin continues to develop sensibly. And now Caruana was expecting e4. And then he thought knight h4 and knight e5. And it's just a very tense position. I mean, who knows? Maybe we would get some kind of draw like this. It's possible. I mean, white isn't obliged to do that, but certainly this looks like the most forthright way to play for black. But instead d5, and Caruana said this was something of a surprise to him. He thought this wasn't necessary. So a lot of this game is about those two bishops and whether, I mean, in particular the dark square bishop, whether this one can come into play. I mean, really, I think black has to push forward now because, you know, there are moves like bishop b5 is possible. Even these just kind of standard Sicilian positions with this beautiful dark square bishop and, you know, rook coming to the c file should be very nice for white. So e4 presses on, and that does at least push the knight out of the way and mean that the queen can come into play. So now we see one of the reasons behind h3, another reason behind h3. It's a very interesting idea. Sometimes this knight pops out to g4. And if knight e5, well, there are a lot of tactics after queen takes e4, but actually they're in white's favour. So queen g5, this is the point of pushing this knight out of the way, and the queen at least comes to a threatening square on the king side. But Caruana had prepared f4, opening up the f file. And when you've got a bishop here and potentially a bishop coming to c4, this is very logical, looking at f7. But the queen can come to g3, so that's right in the king's face. And, you know, we would like to, if we're playing with white, we'd like to drive this queen away or maybe exchange it and then use the center pawns and the bishops, but very difficult to do that. So Karjakin has made a good practical choice at least. And Caruana played rook f2. He was playing relatively quickly. He decided this was a kind of pragmatic move to defend g2 and perhaps prepare the rook to come over to f1. And now bishop c4 looks very logical. And here Karjakin was looking at moves like rook d6 and then rook f1. And potentially queen f5 as well. And white has a very pleasant position. But he was surprised by knight f6. Although he thought the position is difficult, he thought this, in many ways, made life easy for him. And it was admitting that his position is bad, because the king side can be damaged like that. As Caruana said afterwards, he doesn't need to exchange this off. Not yet. However, he just felt, well, if that knight ever ran away, he'd be kicking himself if he missed the opportunity to shatter black's kingside pawns, and this does look very attractive. There's a sacrifice possible here. You can actually play bishop takes f7 check. But Caruana, although queen g7, knight g5 is a winning move, and the tactics are very nice here, pin and win. But Caruana said he couldn't see a decent continuation after king e6, and well, his judgment was correct. Black is actually all right in that position. So instead of going for the sack, he just brought his rook to f1. Very sensible, just piling up here. Then rook d6. And once again, this sacrifice is tempting, and this is a better version, no doubt about it. But in this case, queen g7 is possible. And then the queen comes back, and the knight comes here. White has a very dangerous initiative, but it's still not that clear. And well, Caruana just said, you know, why should I gamble like that? When the position is so good. He doesn't actually need to rush it when black has these chronic weaknesses on the king side. Added to that, Karjakin was running short of time. Caruana played b4. It's a good move. So basically, it's just starting the press on the queen side. I mean, typical Sicilian idea. You're driving the knight away and you're looking to get through to c7. And of course it opens up this diagonal for the queen as well, which is nice. Here knight takes b4 is possible. Caruana said he wasn't exactly sure what he should be doing there, but there are a couple of possibilities. Queen b3 is possible. It's also possible simply to take on f7 as well. And actually bishop f7 does look very good indeed. After this, and queen takes, and then knight g5 is actually a winning move. It's very strong indeed. After this, and queen takes. But it's interesting. Again, Caruana was playing quite pragmatically. It's been a long day. He said, even though he said he wasn't exactly sure what he was going to do against knight b4, he was sure that something would turn up, because there are so many loose points in black's position. You know, all these pieces are unguarded, and his judgment was absolutely correct. And also, with Karjakin running short of time, he knew that he would never spend the time to calculate something like that. And there we go. Karjakin does play a solid move, protecting f7 and protecting c7. You simply can't invest time on risky moves like knight takes b4. So the knight was pushed and goes into the middle, and knight d4. Well, that looks very attractive. Bringing the knight into f5 potentially. I suppose the downside is that, you know, you've given your opponent slight counter chances with this knight in the middle of the board, and that queen is still around the king, and watch out for that bishop as well. But Caruana's judgment was correct. This knight is very strong indeed, and with these rooks here, in fact, black's attack isn't really going anywhere if white is careful. Bishop c8 covers the f5 square. King h1 preventing bishop h3, and now Karjakin just starts to move his king back and forth. You know, he was just holding the position. f5 is a much trickier move, and one of the ideas is to potentially bring the rook across, and another is to advance the pawn to f4 in combination with the bishop and the rook. And it's slightly tricky. Caruana said he was considering bishop e2, but then you've got moves like f4 to consider, and if rook takes, then bishop h3. This is tricky, and pawn takes. Then this is not exactly what white wants. White is still better here, but it's not quite as clear. So f5 would have been a better shot, but very difficult to appreciate that. I mean, and it's also in some ways a very ugly move, blocking the bishop as well. So as I said, Karjakin started to just shuffle around with his king, and now Caruana finds a really nice maneuver. Queen c3, excellent move, looking down this diagonal, preventing any nonsense. So with f5, also still looking at this, but also preparing the way for this bishop. Here we go, bishop d1. King is still shuffling back and forth, so now Caruana has been able to bring his bishop to this wonderful diagonal, and in particular the f5 square. That's where this bishop was heading. Obviously, if this is taken, then there's a wonderful family fork on f5, so the bishop moves out of the way. White's still angling for that. That's threatened, so the bishop has to retreat to c8. So white still needs the final breakthrough, and queen a3. This is the move that really breaks black. And Karjakin is still shuffling, and queen a8. And this is just too much. Hitting the bishop, and yeah, you can see, well, the bishop now can't come to b7. So if bishop d7, then bishop f5 is a really powerful move. And well, after the game, Caruana said he was looking at this and thinking this might be a bit tricky. In fact, this is completely winning for white. Bishop e4 prepares the knight to come through to f5. But after queen a8, Karjakin thought he was just lost and gambled with bishop h3, but this is completely lost for black now. So he's a piece down. The thing is, white actually has very good connection here, and not enough pieces. Rook takes d4. Okay, pawn takes, and knight g4 could be a bit tricky, but instead this important Zwischenzug, bishop g2, knocking the queen back, and then rook takes, and this is completely winning. White is a rook up. Now, you could just play rook takes knight, but Caruana is greedy. He wants his whole rook, and here on the 41st move after the time control, Karjakin resigned the game. If, let's say, queen h4, well, bishop h3 is a good move, and then queen g2 is emphatic. White keeps a whole rook. So nice victory for Fabiano Caruana. He bounces back to 50%. He needed that because, he'd had a dip in form. He lost that Bundesliga game against Anish Giri, and then lost against Carlsen. So, yeah, he was starting to think, oh boy, his form is going. But frankly, he must be exhausted. He's had, this is his 4th tournament practically in a row after the candidates, after Grenka, after the US Championship, and he needs a rest. So anyway, big relief for Fabiano to win this game. I should say that the other games were drawn, so that means that Carlsen is now a point clear in the lead with 4 rounds to go, although it's slightly complicated now with Ding's withdrawal from the tournament, because of course they're only playing 8 rounds. So Carlsen looking good. But anyway, let me know, what do you think? Will Carlsen win the tournament? Does anyone else stand a chance? Even if Carlsen does win the tournament, who would be your favourite, if not Carlsen, to win the tournament? Do comment, and do like if you like this video. And if you're not a subscriber, then just hit the bell button. It's free to subscribe, and then you get instant notification when videos are posted. Thanks very much for watching, and another video coming your way tomorrow.